Okay, I'm taking a look at the PDF labeled 001 and we're looking at exercise 2. I've already set my working directory. I'm going to create a new part and name it 001_2. Hit OK. And the first thing I want to do is start out with the main cylinder body. So I'm going to do my sketch on the top plane. So I'm going to select my top datum here and make sure it highlights in green so that you know it's selected. I can go into sketch and define my diameter using a circle, and we don't have dimensions to work with here. We can pick arbitrary dimensions, but I'm going to go ahead and use 80. I believe that's what I used in class the other day. And I'm going to select OK. Now I can go straight into my extrude command. Now a new feature of the extrude command that we are starting to use is thicken sketch. So once I select thicken sketch, notice that I have two values that I can define in my extrude command. The first one is the length of my extrude, and the second one is the wall thickness of my extrude. So I'm going to go ahead and set my thickness to 8, and let's give it a length of 80. Okay. Good. So now I can go ahead and move on to my next feature, which is going to be my top flange. I've selected this top surface. Notice the entire surface is selected in green. Go straight into my sketch command. Now, for this particular sketch, I actually do want to have a perpendicular view of the plane on which I'm sketching on. So in here in my toolbar, I can select sketch view, which can also be found on the far left-hand side of my ribbon. So either one. And I'm going to use a rectangle. Okay, and I just want to use some nice even numbers here for the dimensions. So let's do 100 for the overall, and I'll center it up here with these other dimensions. Notice I've changed the horizontal dimension to 100, but I do not have a vertical dimension of 100 or anything for that matter. Reason for that is when I was creating the rectangle, notice I was given a constraint of L1 on my horizontal line and L1 also on my vertical line. So if I were to redefine my horizontal line from 100 to say 120 or 130 or whatever I want to pick, it's automatically going to resize the vertical line as well. So both of these lines are defined as L1, and that goes for the rest of the square. So I'm going to select OK, move on to my extrude command to define a thickness. Let's use 8. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so one thing I can do here is I can go on to create a cylinder to remove material, because notice that I still want the center of my part to be empty space. I did not do that in my sketch, which I could have. So what I want to do is, rather than creating a new sketch and extruding and removing material, I want to redefine the sketch that I've already created, and I can do that by going into Sketch 2 and editing definition. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and reorient my sketch plane once again. So what I want is to define a circle that's going to share a common center point, and it's going to be the exact same diameter as this inner diameter on my other feature. So I can do this by selecting a sketch reference. So if I move over to the left side of my ribbon, I have a references option. I can select that, and I should be able to select my inner diameter on my first feature. Okay. Now once I've done that, I'm going to go to my circle command, define my center point as my start, and I should be able to automatically snap to my sketch reference, which it does nicely. Okay, I can check, and I now have material removed from the center. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to add my fillets or my rounds to my outside corners. I can do this using the round tool in the center of my ribbon. I'm going to select round. I want to select the actual edge that I need rounded, and it's going to give me a value of 2. I'm going to go ahead and change this now on my first one. Let's change this to 10. That doesn't seem like enough. Let's try 15. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and select any other corners that I want rounded while I'm still in this round feature here. So I'm going to go on to select another edge. Notice it's automatically going to default to that 15. So I can go all the way around my part and select each edge that I want to round. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and check. And notice that all 4 of my rounds are contained in the model tree under round 1. So I don't need to have a separate round in my model tree for each corner. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is add the holes on my flange. So I'm going to select this surface, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the geometry for one of my holes. So I've selected my surface. I'm going to go into sketch mode. I'm going to reorient my sketch view here, and I'm just going to pick a corner. Let's do this side, and I'm going to add a circle. Define the diameter, which is going to be 15, and let's make these some nice round numbers here. 35 for my location horizontally and 35 for my location vertically. Okay, so of course I can check OK. I can go further to extrude that sketch, to remove material, and I am good. Okay, so I only really need to draw this once, because what I can do at this point is I can select the Extrude 3, and I'm going to go up to Pattern, and in my dashboard I have several options for my pattern. The first thing I want to do is define the axis as my reference point, and my axis is going to be the axis of my main cylinder here, which is the axis of the overall part, and it's automatically defaulting to 4 as my number of total objects or total features. And in the field directly next to that, it's defining 90 degrees as the angle between each of those features, which is exactly what I need for this case, because I need 4 holes and I need them spaced 90 degrees apart. A full 360 degrees divided by 4 will give me 90. So I'm going to go ahead and check, and there's my pattern of holes. Okay, so something else I want to do, and this will just make things a little easier, is I want to actually start grouping features together in my model tree. So if you'll notice this top flange, it's identical to the bottom flange of the part. So I'm going to go ahead and group Extrude 2, my rounds, my sketch, and my pattern 1 of my hole. After I have all these selected, and I've selected these by holding down my control key and clicking once with my left mouse button on each one, I can now right click, select group, and all of these features have now been grouped in my model tree. So notice on the side here I do have the option of expanding the model tree to see all of my components that are contained within it. So what I want to do at this point is I want to actually create an exact copy of this top flange, and I want to put it on the bottom of the part. So one thing I'm going to need to do this is going to be a datum through the center of my part. So if you'll recall at the very beginning when we were creating our first component, our first feature, I extruded this cylinder on one side of my sketch. Now what would have been a better idea would have been to extrude it evenly on both sides of the sketch, but I didn't do that. So luckily I can always go back and change it. So I really have 2 options here. I can create a new datum, put it in the center of the cylinder, or I can go back and redefine my extrude. So in this case I'm just going to redefine the extrude. So I'm going to go back and edit definition, and I am going to extrude evenly on both sides of the sketch. Okay, I'm going to hit check, and that worked out nicely. Now the reason this worked out so well is because when I created this feature or this component, it was created on the surface of my cylinder. It wasn't created on a separate datum. It was created on the surface of that cylinder. So however that surface gets repositioned, this feature is still going to be attached to it. Okay, so now I can go on, I can select my group that I created, and I'm going to use my mirror command. And it's asking me to select a mirror plane up here in my dashboard. And I can select my datum that's in the center of my cylinder. Okay, so notice now we've defined mirror plane. We can go ahead and check, and we have an exact replica of that flange on the other side of the part.